Hey guys, it's your boy Crazy Stargazer here, and yeah, I decided I'm gonna try something a little bit new. Here you can see I have one of my characters up, and right now I'm just going through the process of kind of filling him out, coloring him out a bit, and we're just gonna have sort of a chill day today. Just gonna talk about the channel, talk about some of dreams and ambitions, what you might see coming out of the channel, and possibly what might be in store. So yeah, we're just gonna have a chat, and I'm gonna have my sort of screen print running in the background. Hopefully this can sort of be a semi-regular thing, just something to have some content on the channel, something to keep you guys interested, and maybe you get a sense for like what I am all about creatively. And it gives me a chance to practice my drawing too, so that's also a plus. So yeah, let's get into it. So this character is named Spade Ender, and his whole thing is that he can basically control bad luck, or rather, he is a magnet for bad luck and happens to be able to control it. Something like a jinx. I've had this character knocking around in my head for a while now, and it's something I always want to sort of get down on paper, you know? So here we have Spade, and right now I already have an outline that I scanned into it previously, and I'm going through the line work right now. But basically, this is the basic design. Now, I wasn't really into coloring characters per se. It's weird how when you're sketching out a character, it can look so great in one moment, and then when you color it, it looks completely different. And as you can see, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to improve my skills, and that's how you improve. You repeatedly just keep practicing and practicing until you get better. That's how it works. So, see? Even I had to repeat the motions to get down the face a couple times here. Practice makes perfect. Even if you don't just stretch your drawing muscles for even a couple days, it's weird how you can just forget everything you've ever learned. That's why practice is important, guys. Practice, practice, practice. So, like I was saying, this is Spade Ender. He's kind of a comic character, and I'm just gonna reiterate. Yeah, he can control bad luck, basically. Now for the design, I was really inspired, obviously, manga anime style, kind of. I like the whole big eyes kind of thing. I am pretty proud of how the sketch pretty much came out, and it was pretty much what was in my head. And for an artist, the main thing you want to do is get what's in your head out on into the world, And I was pretty proud of that. Now, going through the coloring process, it was a little bit different, and it sort of showed some issues I had with my overall design, and hopefully you guys can see that toward the end. But for now, you kind of get the general impression. But like I was saying, with going in and coloring and sketching is completely different. But overall, my design for Spade, I would say I probably need to go back to the drawing board. In terms of the theme of him being a character that attracts bad luck, well, his design with the spiky hair, the cocky attitude, sort of the mismatched eyes, I sort of like that style, but I don't feel it really translates to necessarily anything regarding bad luck. And that really shone through when I applied color to it. There wasn't something that really made that pronounced. When you're doing character design, your character design should always say something about your character's personality. Now, in the terms of spiky hair, that's usually attributed to characters like, let's say, Sonic or Goku. In the terms of Sonic, the spikiness is partially because he's part hedgehog. Hedgehogs have quills, so they incorporated parts of his biology into the design. As for Goku, well, it was more of an aesthetic thing. Anime characters typically have really spiky pointed hair, that's kind of the thing. Kind of a generic character, A funny joke is always see if you can spot who the protagonist is in an anime, and chances are it's probably just the guy with the biggest, weirdest hair. Look at Yu-Gi-Oh! And stuff like that. So yeah. And I gave him just big spiky hair. And I wasn't quite sure. And I always had this idea that I wanted to go with orange for his hair. Sort of an orange motif. Not entirely sure why. Oh, now I remember. Spade was actually based off an earlier concept I had, where I had a character idea where a character's head was entirely on fire. And basically my way of going around that was, instead of making his head constantly on fire, which was a bit much, I decided to just make him orange spiky hair, and then my character sort of grew and changed. That's always important, I think, as an artist, is your first draft is never going to be your final draft. It's never going to be perfect. Even if you look at first drafts for characters like Mickey Mouse or something like that, they do not look like anything that they are today. What you want to do is you want to feel free to sort of change up your character and change and evolve and see where that takes you and see how that changes your story. So as you can see, the character you're seeing now isn't the first iteration of the character, just the most fully realized at the moment, and I'm still developing him. As I said, I think I want his character to reflect more of that sort of bad luck sort of vibe. But I do think that this character design does reflect another aspect of the character, which is perseverance. For Spade Ender, my character, I really wanted to sort of emphasize this idea of persistence in the face of overwhelming odds. Basically, he would have this sort of life that is geared to have everything bad happen toward him, or at least inconvenience him. Nothing seems to ever go his way, and I wanted him to show a sort of resistance to that fact, a sort of confidence to that fact. And that's sort of his main personality trait at the moment, just sort of sheer persistence in the fate of a bad hand that fate dealt him. And I do think that is reflected in this specific design. So I guess for me, trying to sort of merge the two personality traits, both that he is sort of a magnet for bad luck and that he is trying to overcome this shorthand through no fault of his own, would sort of be his main character traits. Now, trying to find a character design that exactly alludes to that is tricky for me at the moment. Trying to think up some characters that are or have bad luck. There isn't really a specific character trait I can think of. Well, I could think of some items that are usually attributed to bad luck and try and design around that. So let me think. Bad luck. Skulls are usually attributed to bad luck. Things that are dark, crows. Let me see. Well, bad luck can usually be attributed to like things that are dark or macabre, bad omens, stuff like that. Although I don't think he necessarily attracts bad omens, just kind of bad happenstance, a bad luck of the draw. Not necessarily anything truly evil, just kind of bad luck, So I'm not entirely sure how that design would work. Possibly I could keep the overall design and just change his coloring. I have some rather bright colors, orange, reds. Maybe I could change that up, give him more darker colors. Although I think that would just essentially make him a goth. He isn't exactly. He wouldn't. But his personality is not that of a goth. His personality is rather upbeat, actually. Like I said, he's all about defiance. So even though he has this really sort of bad draw, he's really actually a rather optimistic guy. Though he does have bouts of depression, sadness, things like that, like any ordinary person. Let me think. Some bad luck. I would think. I guess that would sort of. I guess I could change up his attire, his clothes, his costume. I was giving him sort of a neo-modern look here. Just sort of a t-shirt, some slightly ripped up pants with a fire design on them. And while I enjoy it, I don't quite know if it sort of hits at what I'm going for. Again, maybe it's just a coloring, because as a sketch, it seemed to just fit. But now that I had to go in and actually color it, it felt different. So I'll just like toy around with that, see where it goes. But yeah, Spade is a character I've had in my mind for quite a while. And I've even thought up like a couple stories surrounding him and a couple scenarios that he would get himself involved into and stuff like that. Now, in terms of world building and such, I do have it all sort of planned out in my head, but it's still in development. I'm still thinking about the characters and ideas, trying to see where it goes. Basically, he would exist in sort of an anime, sort of cartoony world where we're going to play very loose with the logic of the world, very fast and loose. The characters are going to act very anime-ish, so very anime-ish / realistic. They'll approach things with a realistic sense of view. For example, you can't just drop an anvil on their heads, but they will react to drama and things the way most people in the real world would. When they find out like a juicy bit of gossip, they'll react over dramatic, or they'll try and approach it with certain ideas and stuff like that. And Spade here is pretty much very idealistic and constantly trying to. He kind of gets his hands and his gloves into places where they shouldn't be, constantly trying to make things better, accidentally sort of making things worse and better in the same time. His intentions are always pure, but the effects are not always there. So yeah, I also want to kind of give the world will have some interesting lore and tidbits. There will be humanoids like him, as well as some other creatures. Most creatures will look vaguely human, to some extent. I sort of want to do a fusion of magical elements mixed with the normal world. If you've seen the movie on Netflix, Bright, starring Will Smith, or the new Disney Pixar movie, if that doesn't date this video a bit, the new Disney Pixar movie Onward, which has a bunch of mythological figures interacting in the modern world, or as if they were just ordinary modern creatures, it would sort of be like that. Spade would sort of exist in a world where magic does exist, but more often than not, they just treat it as something normal that they would see every day. Sort of the magic in the world has just been appropriated. I'm not sure if I'm using the word here. It's been sort of maybe genderified a little bit. It's been appropriated to be sort of just normalized. Spade's specific ability in using bad luck is not only a passive ability, it is something he can influence. If somebody was, let's say, annoying him or ticking him off, he could use his power to make them have a bad day if he so wanted. The problem with that being is that because his power is bad luck, he would also be afflicted by the bad luck. So it's always a give and take for his ability. And yeah, so that sort of goes into the discussion about magic systems and how the magic in your given fantasy world works. For here, it would be pretty much a hard magic system. The magic system would be pretty easy to explain. There would be characters that have a pretty obvious ability, and how to go about dealing with them would be also pretty obvious. So, for example, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, there are characters called stands. And basically the way you would approach that magic system is to understand, is to basically get knowledge on what your enemy stand can do, and then seeing how to deal with it. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, for example, and spoilers ahead, there are characters that can... There was one character that could turn very small, and this actually turned out to be very threatening because he could use his stand to directly threaten your brain. He could go inside your earlobe and threaten to, well, lobotomize you. And the way that our protagonist had to deal with him was very clever. They had to use distractions and tricks in order to use their own stands to sort of overwhelm the enemy stando. Yeah. So, yeah. Alright, so talking about magic systems, brought up JoJo because JoJo just has such a clear magic system. So in this world, there will also be pretty clear magic systems. Spade's specific magic would be called, I guess I'm going to go with a virtue. In this world, there are people who have virtues. Basically, characters who have specific abilities. For Spade, it would be influencing bad luck or bad karma, more specifically. If you are basically a character that has bad intent or has done something bad into you, he can inflict bad karma upon you. This also affects him because every time he uses his power, it's basically for an ill intent, which means that inevitably something bad will happen to him every time he uses his power. Now, not every character will have a drawback such as this. For example, his very own brother, and yes, he does have a sibling. I'm still debating his name, but he has a very similar character design to Spade. He has a couple siblings, actually, but I'll talk about that some other time. But basically, Spade's brother would be able to influence good karma or good luck. And this would change the character in a different way. Whereas Spade is very optimistic and very driven, Spade's brother would be very lazy and very pessimistic, very cynical, just because he would be able to get everything he ever wanted with such ease that he would never feel the need to ever struggle or express himself. And there would always be sort of this conflict between Spade and his younger brother. And there would sort of be this sort of cooling effect. It's like what happens when hot meets cold. They always sort of negate each other, and they're always sort of at each other's throats in a way. And I do want the sort of magic system to affect a character's personality in a realistic way. How would having your specific ability affect who you are as a person, you know? Things like that. So, here we go with the coloring. The orange hair. It's not bad. Not great, but not bad. Anyways. So, with Spade, I already talked about Spade for a bit, but basically let's go into sort of the deeper ideas of the character, or about the world in general. Basically, I mentioned that the magic system being used would be something called virtues. And virtues would be characters who are able to manipulate or use a certain trait, personality, quirk. They're not quirks. This isn't My Hero Academia. Yes, it sort of uses the similar idea, but shut up. I thought of this idea before I read the manga. It's an original idea, do not steal. But basically, these characters would have certain specific traits. I would say it's more akin to, like in Seven Deadly Sins, how each character represents a certain sin, although that's not exactly true. They would be able to maybe it's more like Green Lanterns, where they're able to affect emotional spectrum, but that's not exactly true either. Basically, what a character could manipulate would be dependent on basically whatever I want for that specific episode, if I'm being brutally honest, but it would be indicative of the kind of personality they would have too. For example, another character's virtue might be influencing sound, and this character might be, let's say, a rapper, and that would sort of influence their altercations and what they want and what they desire and how they would go about doing it. Another character might be influenced, might have a virtue of seeking great strength, where they value strength above everything else. So their virtue, quote unquote, might not necessarily be a virtue. It just might be something that is valued, or something that they are able to do. I do even have like sort of an explanation for where these virtues come from, but that's sort of my end game, and I'm gonna keep that close to the chest for a little bit. But basically, it starts off, we meet Spade. He lives in, like I said, he lives in a quasi-fantasy world where there are magical elements, where mixed with some modern ones. I'm not going to go too modern with this, so there won't be like iPhones and stuff. In terms of technology, they're roughly around the 1980s. They have phones, they have cars, they have trains. I'm debating whether or not they have planes per se, but they also have magical creatures roaming around, and they have things like witches, they have things like pixies, and these are just sort of creatures that are just out there, sort of ambient, and they're not really any different to them than, let's say, a puppy or kitten would be in our world. Although they have their own threats and their own sort of levels, this world would be one that is filled with like backstory and lore. Most of the characters would not intentionally know. For example, Spade might come across a weird looking mountain formation one day and think, oh, this is a weird looking rock, and it might actually have been some ancient creature at one point, but he might never know that, and it might never come up. It's just an ambient piece of the lore. I think ambient lore is very interesting. Something that, for example, Tolkien, the creator of Lord of the Rings, would often use is sort of like these ambient set pieces. Like, there was a part in The Fellowship of the Rings where the little troupe of protagonists are in a canoe and they're just sort of driving down a river, and you see these huge statues that are in disarray. And you know that obviously somebody must have built them and somebody must have destroyed them at some point. So it tells a story in its own way. And it's not even really important to the story at hand. The Fellowship never bring it up. It's just something that's sort of there. I think the more ambient lore you bring to your story, the more fleshed out you make it. So let's see. Man, I'm taking a while to draw this one. Sorry, guys. I'm still kind of an amateur, so I'm still learning a couple things. Let me see. But yeah, that's basically Spade. Still fleshing it out. Now, in particular, where do I want to go with Spade and this kind of concept? I think I would like to make it a webcomic and put it on Webtoons at some point. I think it could fare pretty well there. I think I need to sort of get the character design of my characters down a little bit more and maybe flesh out a couple things, and then I think I'll try and put it up there at some point. And let me see. It would be sort of, I'm always sort of an adventure sort of guy. So there would be sort of an adventure built to these stories. When I read stories, I'm usually more of an adventure guy. Slice of life stuff usually bores me to tears unless there's some kind of hook. Maybe a romantic hook, maybe a slight supernatural plot. But just normal slice of life stuff. But who knows? Maybe if you guys know like a certain story or something that's just primarily slice of life, maybe I'll give it a shot. But yeah, let me see. Oops, sorry guys, give me a second. All right. So yeah, and just kind of thinking about it. All right. Kind of getting the general gist here. I keep making that mistake. What else? Well, I will say that even the name Spade Ender, it's a little out there. I know. So I'm still debating the name too. Trying to think of something. Like, I think I need to rework his design and his name to sort of reflect the power, because I think what really intrigues me now is the power more than the design per se. Although I really like the design. But you know what they say, sometimes you have to break a egg to make an omelet. So sometimes sacrifices need to be made to get something even better. So yeah, working him out. This speed paint is basically because, well, I want to see if you guys really sort of like this idea, sort of hearing me chat about some things. I usually post videos about chatting about animations and stuff, and I've seen a lot of people do speed paints, and I finally feel like I got enough software to do a speed paint, and I want to kind of put it out there and see how it's reacted to, and you guys kind of get a sense of what I'm about and stuff. Kind of getting some colors, trying to get some colors, kind of like the contrast here. I don't think you guys will see the final image just quite in this speed paint because it was taking so long, but I will try and leave either the final result at the end of the video or maybe as a downloadable or one of my links in the video below. So you will get to see like what this character looks like and stuff. If you want to know where you can catch my usual art, I'm more partial to Instagram now. I like Instagram as a platform. It's just it's a pretty good place to upload and just kind of get your stuff out there. And I find it to be pretty useful. I've been a long-time resident of DeviantArt. I haven't been I haven't been posting as much on Deviant because I kind of feel like it's just become so inundated with just all sorts of stuff that's just too much. It's just too much now. There's so many different, like, there are a lot of professionals and there are a lot of like just people getting their first grips, you know. And I hate to say it, but there can be a little bit of cringe on DeviantArt, you know, just a smidge. I'm sure there are going to be comments saying like, just a smidge. Yeah, I'm not gonna badmouth these guys. Hey, look, guys, art is hard. Art is hard. So I always have big respect to anyone who's attempting it. Even if it's just a stick figure. Hey, man, we all start small. We all start small. Like I said, I think I'm just an amateur. But I've been drawing for most of my life. And I started like everyone else. I started with stick figures. But the thing about drawing for me is it feels creative. I feel the same kind of joy when I draw as when I watch a show, watch a movie, play a video game, stuff like that. So I think that in order to be a really great artist, maybe this is just me spitballing here, but you have to love drawing more than anything. So you have to love drawing more than you would want to play a video game, or more than you would want to watch a movie, or more than you would want to hang out with a friend. Not saying you want to cut off all your friends and stuff. I'm just saying that if drawing is something you want to do, or if you just want to use it as a hobby, it's sort of just an activity you would prefer to do. For example, I could be playing a video game or something right now, but I kind of want to just express myself creatively. And I think that that's the first step. Once drawing becomes something fun, once drawing becomes something you want to do as opposed to anything else or something else, that's like sort of your first step. Then the next step is wanting to improve that skill. And that comes with obviously trying to find a mentor of sorts or trying to learn the fundamentals and stuff. I'm not going to get too in depth about that sort of stuff, partially because I'm learning myself. But maybe I'll talk about maybe more my influences and stuff in a later episode at some time. Obviously, anime inspired, like most things nowadays, but what isn't. But yeah, I don't really want to talk about specifically my influences at the moment because, again, I'm still learning, and this is sort of just layback sort of episode for now. But I think I will talk about and sort of give my opinions on drawing and sort of the idea. But I do want to kind of inspire you guys to kind of give it a shot. Look, nobody starts off drawing amazing from the get-go. Everybody has that process where they're learning. But the idea is to constantly improve. You want to be better than you were the day before, And maybe I'm saying this partially to hype myself up too. Just I'm saying this to you guys, but actually I'm saying it to myself. Ooh, deep thoughts. But yeah. Also, one thing that I always did is I would always read from drawing books, always go by the book. And it's not until recently that I decided to be more loose and start to go with a problem-solving sort of idea toward my drawing. Which means I still do construction, which means you do an outline. You don't just start putting pen to paper. You do an outline. You get your stick figures. You have a plan when you're drawing it out. But what I've started to do is I've started to be more loose. You wiggle your wrist a little bit before you go. You go in very loose. You want to use erase marks a lot. When you're first drawing out, that is not your final draft. That is just a draft. And I think that when you're drawing out, it should be fun. Your first sketch should be just pure, raw fun. And then you can go back and say, okay, what from this draft do I like? What from this draft don't I like? And then try and approach it from a different angle. Something even more fun, something even more crazy. I think that is where I am currently in my artistic journey. This position for Spade is kind of generic. He's just kind of in that happy, ho, anime, cocky guy pose. Look at me, I have my tongue stuck out and my eyebrows crossed and I have the peace signs out, ho, kind of pose. And maybe something more dynamic. Maybe if he was perched on a tree and he was maybe he was upside down and he had the peace sign. Maybe something a little more out there would make it a little more dynamic, Yeah, now I'm thinking about it. I really want to talk about like certain artistic tips and tricks at some point. Not only for you guys, but just to get sort of my ideas out there. I've been trying to write down a couple like tutorials and stuff I've seen here. Um, I think what I would like for these speed paints to kind of be is sort of a record of where I am now and where I hope to be in the future, you know? And I want you guys to sort of go on this journey with me to kind of see like this amateur sort of drawing, these amateur drawings I'm doing now, and see like the progression. Because again, like I think people can be intimidated sometimes, you know? You look at an artist and you think, gee, Wilkers, there's no way I can ever be that good. But you know, they didn't start off perfect. Nobody starts off perfect. Everybody needs to learn. So I think the main point of these speed paints is so you guys see that, hey, whatever I become in the future, I started off like an amateur. I didn't start off great, and I'm still learning. And I kind of want you, and I would kind of want you guys to sort of understand that, and I would like you guys to learn along with me. Somebody once told me that the way to be successful is to help other people be successful along with you. So I guess that's sort of my mentality here. If I can help you guys while helping myself, I think that's a positive. That's an overall. What did Hulk say in Infinity War? How'd it go? He said, "I see this as an absolute win." So if I happen to get good at drawing and you guys happen to get good at drawing, I would see that as an absolute win. So yeah, still kind of going in. Oh, I should have mentioned with the pupil. Oh, we're going on to skin tone now. Skin tones are notoriously difficult. You know, when I start thinking about coloring a character, it's just like, oh yeah, skin tone. Like skin tone are people. People, when you draw skin tones, it can be kind of a touchy subject, and it's kind of tricky to get skin tone. What color are people, you know? What color is the skin? What kind of color are people? I usually range around pink, kind of pale yellow. The skin tones are very subtle. It's subtle because you don't think about it. You're just like, oh, that person's a color, but they're not actually that color, are they? You know, it's hard to get that exact color. Like if you look on the clothes on Spade here, like you can see his pants are very obviously blue. The little little orange highlights at the bottom. His hair is clearly orange. But like, what color is his skin though? You know, that's the tricky part. You know, what color is his skin? So I think most people would kind of go for a pinkish look. If you want some more melanin in there, you give him like maybe a darker brown. Of course, if you have fantasy characters, it can be whatever. If it's an alien, you could make the skin green or whatever. But for the purpose of this video, we're just going with a normal human-looking guy. So usually some sort of pinkish, a tannish. Tannish usually is kind of like a light brown. I'm still learning color, so in color theory. So I'm trying to coordinate here. I usually end up leaning toward sort of a light orange or a light brown, and that usually gives me a nice kind of color. And yeah, so let me see kind of going in, going in here. Yes, the eyes can be a little tricky at times. That's another idea. Get a eye tutorial for you guys. I see a lot of anime eye tutorials and stuff. Honestly, the eyes are not the hardest part. Well, not for me anyways. I will say another thing that is very important is exposing yourself to different styles and trying different things. I really started to branch out and trying to really like try and challenge myself a little more. So this is one of my more dynamic poses, believe it or not. Yeah, it looks basic, very basic, but I am pretty proud of it because this is one of the pieces I really tried to kind of go out there. And I was pretty proud of what I got. I mean, there's some yeesh bits, but overall, I think there was some improvement. And like I said, practice, practice, practice. So I might come back to this picture, touch it up, and see what happens. Oh, if you're an artist and you want a huge self-booster, go back to your old artwork and redraw it. It helps your ego immensely. You'll immediately go, oh, this is the improvement. I am improving, you know? That's something I've been doing constantly. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see a lot of comparison photos I do, like sort of before and after pictures. I think that that's really useful to kind of gauge. Oh yeah, I like the design on my dude's shirt. It doesn't really mean anything. I just thought it was a cool design, kind of a logo. I'm going to the shoes. I give the shoes kind of a basic. The color contrast, I give it dark green. I think it goes kind of good with the shirt. Again, I'm sort of new to color theory, but basically you want warm colors, which are basically like your yellows, your oranges, and you want your cool colors, your blues, your grays and stuff. And you want to use them to contrast each other, but you also want them to use them sort of both to complement each other and to contrast each other. So for here, the sort of orange really contrasts with the light blues of the jeans and the shirt. And I think it gives it like this sort of popping edge. Now the background, I kind of gave a pale sort of color. That's maybe not the best, but I really wanted to bring sort of the notice to the figure of Spike himself. Oh wow, look at Sonic. Jeez. Yeah, Spade is very Sonic looking. And that's another reason I need to rework him. When I started putting color to paper, I realized just how much his personality was determined by his hair. And I'm just like, oh, come on, man. Like, I could have at least went a little more out there with the design. I kind of like the pants thing, and I guess his shirt has like that kind of flowy t-shirt, kind of gives him that look. But I don't know, I think I could go more extravagant with the design. That's another thing. Learning to draw clothing over a human body is one of those things I'm still trying to learn. Like, you think it's easy. You think it would just be easy. You draw the human figure and then you just put some wrinkles or stuff on it. But it's really getting like those intricacies, like the folds and how it drapes over a person and what it would look like and stuff like that. Here is a little inverse function of Spade. Jesus. Oh, my anatomy is so bad. Like, if you inverse the image of a character, it's supposed to, like, match up. You saw how I just inversed it just there, and it did not look right at all. Yeah. I'm still learning, guys. I'm still learning. I promise. Now I'm just going through, adding a couple things. Honestly, I was just faffing about for so long on this. This is sort of the first time I recorded. Hopefully I can sort of shorten these down a bit, make them a little more tidy. Yeah. I'm kind of meandering. I kind of a rambler, guys. Kind of ramble. These are just kind of my thoughts, just off the cuff. No script. Usually I have a script, but I think these speed drawings are going to be unscripted. Just me sort of talking, shooting just talking with you guys. I'm a pretty genuine guy. I don't really have any ulterior motives or anything when I talk, so when I'm chatting, I'm pretty honest. Honesty is the best policy, guys. Yeah, let's see. Going in. Mark some stuff. Yeah. I did not get that lining right at all. Oof. Yeah. Not proud of that. How much longer do we got on the video? So I actually did the recording first before I actually did the audio here. So yeah, I wasn't multitasking. I did the drawing first, and then I am doing the audio now. Just so you guys know. I don't know if you care or not, whatever. It's just, not whatever, it's just, my thought process. Still kind of learning. The brush I'm using here, well, I just used the ink pen, but I was using a brush at first. Still trying to get brush settings right. Trying to get that line art. The cool thing about digital art is let's talk about digital art for a little bit right here. So yeah, digital art. Digital art has a lot of great uses, guys. A lot of great uses. I know what you're going to say. Oh, digital art seems so hard. I like using a pen and paper. I like the feel of using real objects. Yeah, I get that. I get that, guys. I hear you. But hear me out, okay? Hear me out. Look, when you do digital art, the cool thing is you can keep going back to it. And unlike in the real world where, let's say, you're sketching something and some water splashes on it, that's it. It's done. It's ruined forever. But on a digital medium, here, when you do something, it's just it's cool. It's on your computer forever. And unless something happens to your computer, you're pretty much fine. Just remember to save often, guys. Oh, speaking of, I didn't save that much during this picture, but hopefully nothing bad happens in the next couple minutes. They'll destroy the image. But yes, you can save often. Another cool thing about digital art is you can always sort of go back and edit it. Look, I am able to go back, zoom in, and just touch up and get all the little intricacies and all the little nitty gritties. You can't do that on a pen and paper. You can't zoom in on a piece of paper. You can I guess you can just smash your head into the paper. I like that image, just somebody smashing their face into the paper. But no, you can get all the intricacies and stuff. You can go pixel by pixel to get that just perfect feeling. Now, not necessarily that you should do that. I think that your drawing should be loose. It should be free. It should be as if you were drawing on paper. But just saying that it's really nice to have that option. Yeah, and you basically are getting just sort of cutting back now, you're basically you guys get the general gist of the color now. You kind of see how much of a difference there was from the sketch to kind of the coloring phase. Yeah, I would say that I probably need to work on being completely digital, because right now I sort of scan in something I do on paper and then color it in. So look at me being a hypocrite, telling you guys to go digital, and I'm not fully committing myself. But hey, I'm still learning. So yeah. Going through these. All right. Cool. Okay. Oh yeah, we were talking about digital drawing. So yeah, guys, I would say if you have the tools to start digital drawing, you should definitely give it a shot. What tools specifically should you use? Again, I think that's something I would want to talk a little more deeply about in another video. I can just sort of spitball some ideas right now. What the program I'm currently using is Paint Tool Sci, but you can also use Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and those are software programs you can download onto your computer. Make sure you download it from a legitimate source so you don't get viruses and stuff. How much are they priced? I'm not entirely sure at the moment. Again, sort of off the cuff, so I'll try and come back with a different video and kind of go more in depth with that, do more research for you guys. But yeah, I'm using Paint Tool Sci. I've had it for maybe 2 years now, and I haven't drawn as much as I should. I haven't. But even with Paint Tool Sci, I have drawn... But even with Paint Tool Sci, I have I think I have improved greatly. Before this, I did use Photoshop. Now, during Photoshop, oddly enough, I would draw using my mouse, which was it's probably not the greatest idea. If you are determined enough to draw with a mouse, you have the biggest cojones I have ever seen. Like, if you can draw using a mouse, like, I think you should just win something right off the bat. But I'm actually using a drawing tablet. I received it as a gift, so yeah, if you want to draw digitally, it's going to involve some monetary investment. I'm sorry, there's not really a way to get around that. There are some free programs you can use. But really, if you want to use the best programs, I'm sorry to say, you are going to need to invest a little bit of time. I don't know. Try asking for a holiday present. Maybe try working up your allowance. Put some money away, and maybe instead of buying that next game, you like spend it on some art software. Like I said, if you want to get good at art, it should be something you really want to do, even more than gaming. So if you're about to pick up that new game, maybe instead of picking up that game, you get the software. Just saying. Just saying. Anyways, besides, when you're like drawing your own character, like, it's more freeing, at least I think. Like, what's more cool? Playing as somebody else's character and somebody else's rules and somebody else's world, or making your own rules, making your own character, and having your own ideas, you know? So, yeah. Again, this is taking so long. Oh my gosh. I really gotta like, oh my god, all that just to make one mark. Jeez Louise. Now I think about it, the skin tone could have been a little more mixed. Maybe I could have blended it. Oh, another thing about digital art, guys. Layering. Oh my gosh. Layering is the best thing. I think layering is the single greatest invention an artist has ever come up with. Don't take my word for it. I'm sure there's a bunch of art majors or whatever out there, but layering is phenomenal. Because layering, if you draw on a piece of pencil and paper in the real world, right? Like, that's it. Like, once you've put pencil to paper, that's it. What you've drawn, that's it. But with layering, it's more like sculpting, to be honest. It's more like adding and subtracting. That's the thing about layering. You can make a new layer, you can add more stuff, you can add colors, take colors, experiment on one layer, then get rid of it the next. You can add completely different things to layers. The more layers you have, like, the more intricate your drawing becomes. Like, the best thing about digital art is layering. Most of the digital art mediums like Adobe Illustrator, Paint Tool SI, and Photoshop are going to have layering of some kind. And professionals utilize layering to a T. So if you're using digital art and you're doing everything on one layer, you are not using it to the fullest. Use the layer function. Use the layer function. Use the layer function. I cannot stress this enough. Use the layer function. Yeah. And let's see. I'm not going to get too specific into the details. I'll save that for a different video. But yeah, digital art, some of the great things about it, the layer function, where you can add and subtract what you want. It gives you a lot of options. It gives you a lot of rooms to make mistakes, but also make improvements. What else? It gives you a lot of freedom. It gives you a lot of options, and it just makes everything a little more crisp. You know, like I said, you can go back and just change that one little thing, and it just gives you more options. Look, I'm an amateur, and with digital art, I can at least make my stuff look like semi-presentable. Like before, you saw the sketch I had before of Spade? Like, that was okay. But with digital art, you can go in, really make that crisp, clean art and stuff. It's beautiful. I will say that I have been partially drawing and using digital art and looking up tutorials and stuff. So this isn't my first gander at this stuff. I have I'm bringing a couple things to the table here. But I'm still learning. And the best way to learn is by doing. And I hope that by doing it in front of you guys, like, you'll be inspired to try it on your own. Yeah. Oh, if you're wondering, like, I don't know if you guys are wondering about my tone of voice or anything. Yeah, I just sort of talk like this. Yeah, I just sort of have this kind of, I don't know, sort of a dull voice. Sorry, I'm not more interesting. Let me see. About me. Well, I guess I don't usually get personal. I try not to get too personal in these videos, but if you guys want to know more about me, I prefer to have sort of my content and stuff speak for itself. Hopefully, like, I hope that you guys take away more my art and more like my videos and stuff than necessarily like who I am as a person. Like, that's the idea, I think, of all artists. Artists want their stuff to be more recognizable than them. Everybody knows Mickey Mouse, but not everybody knows Walt Disney. Everybody knows Spider-Man, but not everybody has seen Stan Lee, you know? Sort of like that. Everybody knows Naruto, but how many people have actually seen the creator of Naruto? Oh, big questions, big questions. So, for me specifically, yeah, I've always had an interest in drawing ever since I was a little kid. I would say that I am an adult right now, so obviously I haven't grown up much, have I? But yeah, I'm still learning. There have been times where I wanted to quit drawing. There have been times, and there still are times. I'm not gonna say I'm above it. I'm still trying to get better. I'm still trying to learn. There are gonna be times where you're gonna think, what's the point? Why am I even doing this? But I think, again, the thing about drawing is it needs to be fun for you. You should wake up in the morning thinking, oh my gosh, I had this idea the other night. I can't wait to get it on paper, you know? And I think it needs to be fun for you. I think that if you're drawing and it's not fun, then you need to take a break, maybe do something that you think will be fun for a little bit, then come back to it. Or, you know, there's nothing wrong with taking a break or something for a little bit of time, then coming back to it. Because, you know, sometimes you're not in the frame of mind at that moment to draw something. And then at the next minute, you're just like, boom, you're just ready. Speaking of, for me, I seem to always get inspired in like the worst opportune times. Like, I'll just be walking down the street with no pen or paper in sight, and all of a sudden a song will come on, or I'll get an idea for a story or a comic or an idea for a character, and there's this overwhelming urge to get it down on paper, and there'll just be nothing around. It'll just be me and my thoughts, and I'm just like, oh no, here was this perfect idea that I had, and now I'm gonna totally forget it, aren't I? And then I get back home, and then, yep, totally forgot. That's why you always want to have a pen and paper on you, just to jot down your ideas. I have gotten in the habit of like having Post-it notes and stuff around to try and get those ideas down, because I have the memory of a shrew. I have the memory of a small rodent. I am terrible at memorizing certain things, especially memorizing like small details. So when I try and remember, I usually go with a feeling. I can usually remember a feeling better than I can a specific drawing. So if I was going to like draw, let's say, I don't know, a dragon or something, I would need to try and remember a song or how I was feeling at the time to sort of get that artistic expression down, rather than trying to get like the shape or the size of the dragon or anything like that. So if you're in an artistic rut and you're like, let's say you do want to draw and you're just like, okay, I want to draw something, but I don't know what. Like, I would carry a little notebook around, or there are a lot of apps on phones nowadays where you can record like your ideas and stuff. There are like character planners. There's even stuff on the internet. There's all sorts of stuff, guys. All sorts of stuff. Again, off the cuff, so I can't mention anything by name, but all sorts of stuff. I would recommend even a notepad and a pencil and paper. That's like a step. That's just a step. And you just jot down an idea for a story. Like for Spade Ender here, I would just write down unlucky guy with spiky hair. Boom. Then when I come back to it, when I come back home, I meander back home, and I want to put pen to paper. Boom, I got like an idea. It's like, cool, I'll draw this random doodle of a note that I wrote. And you'd be surprised. That's how I've gotten most of my ideas pretty recently. Instead of, I feel like if you sit down and are just like, I'm going to draw things now, like you're not going to feel inspired. Like if you're watching a movie or something and you get inspired, then like pause the movie or screen capture it, or like take a picture of the screen of the movie you're watching or something. And just like think that idea up and then like just commit that to paper or something like that. Yeah. So that's how I get inspired. You can't control when you get inspired. Inspiration is a fickle mistress. It just shows up when it wants. It will just break down your door while you're just chilling, and you just have that one moment to get it. It's like a leprechaun, or it's like a unicorn, or it's like it's like something very hard to see. It's like this mythical experience that you rarely get, and then when you do get it, you're just like, darn it, I should have caught it. It's the worst game of tag ever. It's the worst game of tag ever. Artists are constantly trying to get inspired, and then it slips right through their fingers. That's why you partially always gotta be prepared, but you also have to be sort of loose. When you're drawing, you don't want to have like something firm in mind. You're just kind of having fun, shooting the shit, I think. Excuse me. Trying to keep the channel PG, so trying not to cuss. If you guys don't mind cussing, let me know. But yeah, I'm going to try and keep it PG. Anyways. Yeah. Oh yeah, also, character Spade existing would be a pretty PG universe. I don't know, there might be some dark overtones, but yeah, overall PG. Oh, look at that. Looks like I'm still rambling on while the video has stopped. So yeah, guys, this was basically sort of my speed drawing. Sorry for kind of how long it is, how rambly it is, but yeah, if you kind of enjoyed this content, let me know, and I'll talk to you later, crazy crew. Stay gold.